Information on how to watch, attend, and participate, as well as agendas, minutes, and recordings can be found at Broomfield's website at broomfield.org/council meetings. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. If you'd like to speak on more than one item, which isn't possible because this is a study session, you'll need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 through 25 have 2 minutes. And if time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1 minute to speak. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets available through our AV team in the back of the council chambers. We'll now proceed with tonight's special meeting. The special meeting of the City Council is called to order. Council Member Cohen is excused. A quorum of council is present. So will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll begin with council's review and approval of this evening's short agenda. Not really. Does any member of the council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Are there any objections to this agenda being approved? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Before we jump into tonight's special meeting agenda, I want to remind council and residents that there will be a study session following the special meeting. The only item for this special meeting is council's appointments to fill expiring and vacant terms on Broomfield's boards and commissions. Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf will help facilitate this portion of the agenda. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank all the residents who took the time to apply and interview for a position on our boards and commissions. The fact that we have so many interested and qualified residents is what makes Broomfield a great place to live. If you applied and are not selected or missed the application period this year, I encourage you to apply again next year, as even calendar years are the main recruitment periods. Additional vacancies will open, as well as opportunities for other boards and commissions. The procedures regarding the election process to fill the boards and commission positions are set forth in section 6.1 of Council's Procedures and Rules of Order. We will use that process, which is as follows. Nominees will be identified for each position. Council will nominate applicants as a slate if desired. Nominations do not require a second. If the number of nominees for a particular board or commission does not exceed the number of vacancies, Council will proceed directly with a motion to appoint. If the number of nominees exceeds the number of vacancies, Council will proceed to a vote using our electronic voting system. Results of each round will be electronically presented. If none of the candidates receive the required number of votes to be elected on the first ballot, the candidate receiving the fewest votes will be dropped as a candidate unless the elimination of such candidate or names in the cases of a tie vote will leave only one candidate for the office. This process will continue until the number of candidates needed for the openings receive the required number of votes to be elected. Following the completion of the electronic balloting, a motion to appoint candidates by name will be necessary. Council received an email at 5:45 from staff with the voting links. Please prepare your devices for voting. I'll ask the city and county clerk if there is any additional information to provide. Seeing none, we will now proceed with the public comments, starting with in-person. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
It is, yes.
Okay? Yep.
And I can make public comment about the elections this evening. Is that correct? Or the appointments? Okay,
Yes.
great. I just want to make sure. So good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, City Manager, staff, and community. I'm Kristen Heiser, Executive Director of the Broomfield Housing Alliance. On behalf of the Broomfield Housing Alliance Board of Commissioners, I'm here to request the reappointment of Linda Fahrenbrook and Joy Castillo to continue serving on the BHA Board of Commissioners. As a newly seated board, at it for just 2 years, since we were established in December 2021, the BH Board is operating efficiently and believes it's important to continue with the established momentum. We're very appreciative of the interest of our community members to participate in the BHA's activities. However, we are eager to continue with the momentum that we're currently experiencing. Therefore, the Board of Commissioners respectfully requests the City Council to consider renewing the terms of Linda and Joy, both whom have expressed interest in continuing their service. These two individuals have played an incredibly productive, supportive, and crucial role in shaping the culture and effectiveness of the board as it works to establish this newly independent housing authority. Thank you for considering our request and your ongoing support for the Broomfield Housing Alliance.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else in person that would like to deliver public comments? Seeing none, next is public comment from individuals joining via phone. And we don't have anyone. So next is questions from city council members. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Before we proceed with appointments, in previous years, council has decided to nominate the entire slate of applicants for all the boards and commissions positions at the beginning. Would anyone on council like to make those nominations? Councilmember Marshallson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I nominate everyone who has applied.
Great. So we have a nomination, which does not require a second, to nominate all applicants on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Application List. We will now, the first committee this evening is the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability, or ACES as it's known, which includes 11 vacancies. We will begin with the appointments of 5 members to serve 4-year terms. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for ACES have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal via the link shared with staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for the 5 vacancies for 4-year terms.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. That ballot is now open.
Thank you. We're missing an email. Thank you. Oh, you just did. Okay. You have it now? Councilmember Nguyen. All right. Take your time.
All right, so we do have 3 of the 5 members who have passed. They are Brandon, is it Mouch, Sean McKenzie, and Lois Vanderkoy. So we will remove the candidates who only received 1 vote and then re-vote for the remaining 2. All right, that ballot is now open, so go ahead and just refresh your forms and re-vote for 2. We're going to add Elizabeth Mays as the 4th candidate, and then we're going to remove and Braun as the 0 and the lowest voter. All right, that ballot is now open. You will vote for 1, so you'll vote for the final member. Right, so then you do have your 5th candidate, that's Matthias Matt Johnson.
Thank you all so much for your patience. We're using multiple platforms to do this, so it's a little bit clunky, but no more than usual. Is there a motion to appoint? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Brandon Mock, Sean McKenzie, Lois Vanderkooy, Elizabeth Mays, and Matt Johnson each be appointed to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability for a 4-year term until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Wynn?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Council will now vote on the motion. Please cast your vote electronically using agenda link. Switch gears. Yep, I know. Thank you. All council members have entered their vote. And the results will now be displayed on screen, and that passes 9-0.
Next is the appointment of 2 members to serve for unexpired 2-year terms on the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for ACES have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal via the link shared with staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for the 2 vacancies for 2-year terms.
And that ballot is open.
Thank you.
All right, we have our 2 candidates. And they are Lance French and Scott Whitmore.
Thank you. Into the system, is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Lance French and Scott Whitmore be appointed to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability for a 2-year term until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second, Councilmember Hinkle?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Council will now vote on the motion. Please cast your vote electronically on agenda link. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on screen, and that passes 9-0. Thank you all.
Next is the appointment of 2 alternate members to serve for 2-year terms on the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for ACES have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal via the link shared from staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for the 2 alternate vacancies for 2-year terms.
That one is open.
Thank you.
All right, we have all votes in. We'll show that now. They are Sarah Braun and Marcus Giron.
Is there a motion to appoint? Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that Sarah Braun and Marcus Giron be appointed as alternate members to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability for a two-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council will now vote on the motion. Please cast your vote electronically using Agenda Link. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on screen, and that passes 9-0.
Next is the appointment of one youth member to serve for a two-year term on the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability. The applicants listed for the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for ACES have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal via the link shared with staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for the one youth vacancy for a two-year term.
Okay, and that is open.
Thank you.
Right, we'll show the results of that. We do have one youth that has succeeded. It's Michaela Stotsky.
Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Michaela Stotsky be appointed as a youth member to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability for a two-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
So seconded.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council will now vote on the motion. Please cast your vote electronically using Agenda Link. All council members have cast their vote and the results will now be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
Sorry. Next is the appointment of one youth alternate member to serve for a two-year term on the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for ACES have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for the one youth alternate vacancy for a two-year term.
That one is open.
Thank you.
Right. We'll display those results now. It is Cornell Mork.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion to appoint?
I move that Cornell Mork be appointed as a youth alternate member to the Advisory Committee on Environmental Sustainability for a two-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember William.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right, council now vote on the motion, casting your vote on Agenda Link, please. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
All right, the next committee is the Arts, History, and Cultural Council, which includes 9 vacancies. We will begin with the appointment of 2 members to serve a 4-year term on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for the 2 vacancies for 4-year terms.
And council, before we do begin that vote, I do want to just give council a heads up that one of the candidates, Michael Gordon, is currently serving as an alternate on the Personal Merit Commission. His term does not expire, so any subsequent appointment would be a second board and commission appointment requiring a vote of at least 8 members of city council.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. I'm sorry, I did miss. No, I believe she is the only one that even expressed interest in ACES. So Lois Vanderkoy would be the same scenario here. Thank you. And that poll is open. So we do have our 2 members, and they are AJ Chankramath and Julie Fuller.
Is there a motion, Mayor Pro Tem? It's hard to get.
That's all right. I move that AJ Chankramath and Julie Fuller be appointed to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, council will now vote on the motion. Please cast your vote electronically on agenda link. Oh, council members have entered their vote really quickly. Yay. The results will now be displayed on screen and that passes 9-0.
The
Thank you.
appointment of 3 members to serve unexpired 2-year terms on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 3 vacancies for a 2-year term.
And that one is open. So we do have our 3 members. They are Ann Brazil, Mackenzie Kerrigan, and Nancy Christie.
You. Into the motion. All right, perfect. Is there a motion to appoint?
Yes, I move that Ann Brazil, Mackenzie Kerrigan, and Nancy Christie be appointed as members to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council for an unexpired 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second, Councilmember Marshall?
Second.
Thanks. Is there any discussion? All right, council vote on the motion. Cast your vote on agenda link, please. All council members have entered their vote and the results will now be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve 2-year terms on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for the 2 alternate vacancies for a 2-year term.
Okay, that one is open. So we have one of our two. It's Dorian Wilderman. We remove all the 0 votes and the 1 vote for Patricia and revote for one more candidate.
Hmm.
Okay, so a couple of people had already voted in that poll before we got it fixed up, so we're gonna reset that. Everybody's going to need to vote again on this one. All right, that is open again. Or Leslie, we're this one. Right, so we do have a second candidate there, and it's Joshua Vigliotti.
All right, is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Dorian Wilderman and Joshua Vigliotti be appointed as alternate members to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council for 2-year terms or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Wynn?
Seconded.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will council please cast their vote electronically on the motion? All council members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed, and that passes 9-0.
The appointment of one youth member to serve a 2-year term on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council have already been nominated. We will now vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for one youth vacancy for a 2-year term.
That one is open. For Tim. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Always good.
You got called out.
Check my notes.
I know, you're the one running everything,
I
so.
know. A lot of tabs.
Yeah. Okay, so we do have a winner on this one. It's Celeste Ponarelli.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to appoint?
Yes, I move that Celeste Pontarelli be appointed as a youth member to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, council will now vote on the motion. Please cast your vote electronically using Agenda Link. All council members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of one alternate youth member to serve a 2-year term on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Arts, History, and Cultural Council have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 5 vacancies for 4-year terms. That's not right. Reminder, this is for the appointment of one alternate youth member to serve a 2-year term on the Arts, History, and Cultural Council.
And that ballot is open.
Yeah.
And we do have a winner. This is Chloe Whiteside.
Wonderful. Is there a motion to appoint?
I move that Chloe Whiteside be appointed as a youth alternate member to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
The next committee is let's see, we are to a new committee. The next committee is the Broomfield Housing Alliance, which includes 2 vacancies. We will begin with the appointment of 2 members to serve 4-year terms on the Broomfield Housing Alliance. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions master applicant list for the Broomfield Housing Alliance have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal via the link shared with staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for 2 vacancies for 4-year terms.
That ballot is open. Okay, so we do have 2, and they are Joy Castillo and Linda Farrenbrook.
Thank you. Is there a motion to appoint?
I
Mayor Pro
move-
Tem?
I move that Joy Castillo and Linda Farrenbrook each be appointed to Broomfield Housing Alliance for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? And go ahead and cast your vote on agenda link, please. Got a rhythm. All council members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
All right, the next committee is the Historic Landmark Board, which includes 5 vacancies. And we will begin with the appointment of 3 members to serve 4-year terms on the Historic Landmark Board. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions master applicant list for the Historic Landmark Board have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 3 vacancies for a 4-year term.
That one is open. Okay, so we do have our 3, and they're Morgana Meter, Helmut Verlige, and Cynthia Williams.
A lot of screen switching, isn't it? I know. Thank you, guys. You're doing great. Okay. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Morgana Meter, Helmut Verlige, and Cynthia Williams each be appointed to the Historic Landmark Board for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Nguyen.
Seconded.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote electronically. All council members except Councilmember Ward entered their vote. Thank you. And now they have. The results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0. Thank you.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve 2-year terms on the Historic Landmark Board is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions master applicant list for the Historic Landmark Board have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 2 alternate members to serve 2-year terms on the Historic Landmark Board.
Mayor Pro Tem, if we can shortcut this, you only have 1 remaining candidate. So it's
Cool.
Brian Marin.
All right.
A point of order.
Brian Marin.
Sure.
I have him as a really top candidate and another one. Would we be amenable to waiting on this one until the other ones?
I would be.
There's folks that would like him to serve on another one,
Fair.
so. It's just an alternate spot. I mean, we don't have to appoint, right?
You don't have.
Okay, let's skip it.
No problem.
Clerk. Land use review.
So we'll skip the appointment for the alternate member to the Historic Landmark Board for a 2-year term. And we will proceed with the Land Use Review Commission. The next board for council's review this evening is the Land Use Review Commission, which includes 6 vacancies. The appointment of 4 members to serve a 4-year term on the Land Use Review Commission is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Land Use Review Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal via the link shared with staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for 4 vacancies for 4-year terms.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I don't know if City Council wants me to remind them every time this comes up. We are going to start getting more people who've already been appointed to boards. So I am keeping track of that if you want me to point that out when we get to votes for each board.
That would be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we want to spread the love.
So for the Land Use Review Commission, City Council's already appointed Joshua Vigliotti to the Arts, History and Cultural Council.
Thank you.
Right, so that ballot is open. Okay, so we do have our top 4. They are Earl Franz, Jennifer Mickelson, Bruce Peterman, and Kimberly Wilford.
Thank you. Is there a motion to appoint?
Thank you. I move that Earl Franz, Jennifer Mickelson, Bruce Peterman, and Kimberly Wilford each be appointed to the Land Use Review Commission for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Deladue?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will council please cast their vote on the motion electronically? All members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve a 2-year terms on the Land Use Review Commission is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Land Use Review Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 2 alternate vacancies for 2-year terms.
All right, and that one is open. Right, so the one that got the most votes on this one is Brian Marin. Oh, sorry.
So you need to
Yeah,
revote.
We need to break that tie. Sorry, I was thinking it was one.
We'll drop all the zeros.
Drop all the zeros and all the ones. Votes, that does leave just. All right, that one is open. You're just voting for one remaining to break that tie. All right, so that one's going to be Frank Dong.
Their motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem.
I move that Brian Marin and Frank Dong be appointed as alternate members to the Land Use Review Commission for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote on the motion. Council members have entered the vote. The results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
The next board for council's review is the library board, which includes 8 vacancies. We'll begin with the appointment of 4 members to serve a 4-year term on the library board. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the library board have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 4 vacancies for 4-year terms.
It is open. There are a significant number of members on the library board that have already been appointed, if you'd like me to go through those.
That'd be great.
Sarah Braun to ACES, Mackenzie Carignan to Arts, Nancy Christie to the Arts, Marcus Giron to ACES, Joshua Vigliotti to the Arts Council, Dorian Wilderman also to Arts, and Cynthia Williams to the Historic Landmark Board.
Go.
That ballot is open. So we do have three of the four members. They are David Feineman, Dana Innerfield, and Cheryl Lavelle. So now we're going to remove all of the people that got 0 votes and all of the people that got 1 vote. And there will be one more vote for one person.
All right, is there a motion to appoint, oh, wait, we still have to do one more. Sorry.
Right, that one is open.
I have a question, Joel, Mr. Heine. Is there a way to remove the candidates that have been appointed, or are we short on candidates versus vacancies?
You mean
The ones that have been appointed?
we could manually remove them, but since they've been nominated as part of the slate for every one of the boards, they've already been nominated for all the
That's the
subsequent boards.
drawback. Okay, fair enough. Thought I'd ask because inquiring minds want to know.
Sure. I mean, it will get more and more complicated as we move through this.
Okay, we'll just buckle up. We'll take notes. Is the silence weird? It's nice. Okay, good. I could be doing that thing.
Right, so nobody received a majority vote from city council, so we do need to remove Michael Gordon with 0 votes and then Blake Eunice and David Taylor, who only got 1 vote each.
Alright. I haven't been following that.
Okay, that ballot is now open. Library Board, 1 member, 4-year term.
Say that again? Yeah, that's why I polled the people before I went there and they preferred silence. So we're gonna proceed in silence. I have some like, silence is good, okay?
We do have a winner on this one. And it's Patsy Thompson as your 4th candidate.
Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that David Feineman, Dana Interfeld, Cheryl Lavelle, and Patsy Thompson each be appointed as a member to the library board for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Lim?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote electronically. You all members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve a 2-year term on the library board is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the library board have already been nominated. We will move to vote. We will now vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 2 alternate vacancies for 2-year terms.
Right, and that ballot is open. So we have one of the 2. It's Blake Unis. We're going to remove all of those candidates that got 0 votes and 1 vote. Right, that ballot is open. second alternate is David Taylor.
All right. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Blake Eunice and David Taylor be appointed as alternate members to the library board for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Digglio.
So seconded.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote electronically. All members have cast their vote, and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of one youth member to serve a 2-year term on the library board is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions master applicant list for the library board have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for one youth vacancy for a 2-year term.
Right. And as a second reminder, one of your candidates, Coronel Mork, you've already appointed to ACES.
Who is that?
Coronel Mork. Ballot is open. Okay. That youth is Jericho Bondi.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Jericho Bondi be appointed as a youth member to the library board for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast their vote. On the motion, and all council members have entered their vote. The results will be displayed on the screen, and it's 9-0.
The appointment of one alternate youth member to serve a 2-year term on the library board is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions master applicant list for the library board have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for the one youth alternate vacancy for a 2-year term.
That ballot's open. All right, so we do have a 4-4-1 tie. So we're gonna remove the person that got 1 and the 2 that got 0, leaving Jacqueline Stephen and Joaquin Ocon Garcia. That ballot is open. Right, and that alternate is Jacqueline Stephen.
Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Jacqueline Stephen be appointed as a youth alternate member to the library board for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Wynn?
Thank you, Mayor. Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote electronically. Hang on. Thank you. And everybody's cast their vote. The results will be displayed on the screen. That's okay. And there it is, almost. It's on my screen. It passes 9-0. What?
Curtis is working on getting it back up. He lost it on his end, so he's
It's
working on that.
okay.
Thanks, Mayor.
You're toggling. I get it. All right, moving on.
All right, the next board for council's review this evening is the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment, which includes 6 vacancies. The appointment of 4 members to serve a 4-year term on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Neighborhood Board of Adjustments have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for the 4 vacancies for 4-year terms.
And you have 2 candidates that you've already appointed, Frank Dong to the Land Use Review Commission and Brian Marin also to the Land Use Review Commission. That ballot is open. Right, we do have your 4 candidates. They are Denise Bertzlaff, Jeffrey Freeland, Leonard Giuliano, and Michelle Gupton.
Thank you. So is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Denise Bertzlaff, Jeffrey Freeland, Michael Gupton, and sorry, it wasn't in there and all of my notes disappeared. Leonard Giuliano, each be appointed to the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment for a 4-year term until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Lim? Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote electronically on the motion. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve 2-year terms on the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Neighborhood Board of Adjustments have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal via the link shared from staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for 2 alternate vacancies for 2-year terms.
Open. All right, so we do have our 2 alternate members and they're Vinnie Pallone and Ben Shaw.
All right. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Ben Shaw and Vinnie Pallone be appointed as alternate members to the Neighborhood Board of Adjustment for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Council members, cast your vote on agenda link. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
All right, council, thank you for your patience. The next board for council's review this evening is the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee, which includes 7 vacancies. The appointment of 3 members to serve a 4-year term on the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee are already nominated. Now we move to the vote. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 3 vacancies for 4-year terms.
And again, we do have quite a few that have already been appointed. Sarah Braun to ACES, Ann Brazil to the Arts Council, Frank Dong to LERC, Marcus Giron to ACES, Brandon Mouch to ACES, Lois Vanderkoy to ACES, and Scott Whitmore to ACES.
Thank you.
All right, and that ballot is open.
Does anybody need the already appointed again?
No, that's
Are you good? Okay. The list is growing.
It is growing. Okay. So we do have our 3, and they
Awesome.
are Jess Crowley, Doug Arrett, and Chandler Evie.
All right. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Doug Arrett, Jess Crowley, and Chandler Evie each be appointed as members of the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Wynn?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Council members, please cast your vote. And all council members have entered their vote. The results will be displayed and that passes 9-0.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve a 2-year term on the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal via the link shared from staff earlier. As a reminder, this is for 2 alternate vacancies for 2-year terms.
That one is open. All right, so we do have your two alternate members, and they are River Parento and Ann Brazil. Just as a reminder, Ann Brazil's already been appointed to the Arts, History, and Cultural Council, so she would need a vote of at least 8. It's 8 on the, not this ballot, it's when you're nominating for the actual motion, a vote of at least 8 to pass.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that River Paranto and Ann Brazil each be appointed as alternates to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Is there a second? This is new. This is new to me because before we do this, I think it would be that they would need the 8 votes from council on the first round, Mr. Heine. Not the acclamation, basically, where so they would have to receive that threshold in the Google form. That's what it means. It doesn't mean this.
So the way that the code is written, the limitation may be waived by a supermajority of 8 affirmative votes of city council. So I guess kind of splitting the difference there could be a separate motion here to waive the one board or commission requirement. That vote would require 8. If that passed, then this slate could proceed. If that does not pass, then we'll need to find a second alternate.
Well, let's check in with the voters. Do you guys want to waive it or do you want to pick another person who's not already on a board? Councilmember Marshallson.
I was gonna make a substitute motion to only appoint River so that we could go back to the other ones.
Okay, that's fair. Councilmember Marshallson, make that motion.
Substitute motion that we appoint River
Paranto.
Pronto and go back to the other one.
Is there a second? Councilmember Lim? All in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks. Old school. So, sometimes it's just quicker.
Times.
All right, so let's do that.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Heine.
So we'll rerun this alternate vote ballot and remove Miss Brazil from it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And River as well.
And River, correct. Okay, that ballot is now open.
Are we gonna do 2 separate motions? Or can this be combined into one motion? Because we never really made the motion on River Parento.
We could combine that into the final
Yeah,
voting
we
motion.
didn't finish
This-
this vote. It's me.
Okay, please refresh if you're already in it and try again. Yeah, all right, it's Joel Niles.
All right, now, Mayor Pro Tem, is there a motion to appoint?
Yes, so we will continue with River Paranto, but I move that River Paranto and Joel Niles be appointed as alternates to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Wynn? I beat you.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Go ahead and cast your votes, please. Oh, I did that too soon. Does it matter if I hit no vote too soon? Because I just did it. Okay, then all council members have entered their vote and that passes 9-0.
The appointment of one youth member to serve a two-year term on the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for one youth vacancy for a two-year term.
All right, and you do have three youth that you have already appointed to a different board. They are Celeste Ponarelli to the Arts Board, Michaela Stotsky to ACES, and Chloe Whiteside to the Arts Board. That ballot is open. So that winner is Ananda Aaron Padel.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem, motion to appoint?
Yes, I move that Ananda, I move that Ananda Aaron Padel be appointed as a youth member to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee for a two-year term until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Cast your vote, please, electronically. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of one alternate youth member to serve a two-year term on the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for one youth alternate vacancy for a two-year term.
That ballot is open.
Yes.
Celeste Ponarelli, Michaela Stotsky, and Chloe Whiteside. Right, so that youth alternate is Ava Falsing.
All right. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Ava Falsing be appointed as a youth alternate to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee for a two-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Lim?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Go ahead and cast your vote electronically, please. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0.
The next board for council's review is the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee, which includes 7 vacancies. The appointment of 3 members to serve a 4-year term on the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 3 vacancies for 4-year terms.
And you do have 4 candidates on this that have already been appointed. Nancy Christie to the Arts, Jess Crowley to OSTAC, Joel Niles to the Open Space Trails and Advisory Committee, and Dorian Wilderman to Arts. All right, that is open. Okay, so we have two that have passed, and that's Alex Yellow and Chris Rorty. And then you do have two that got a tie of 5. And so since both of those did receive at least a majority, I think that based on the way the charter is written, instead of removing the 0s and 1s, council should break that tie. Go ahead and rerun for the third member just with Chris and Holly. Okay, that ballot is open. All right, it's Holly Taylor.
All right. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, I move that Alex Arnello, Chris Rorty, and Holly Taylor be appointed as members to the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Leslie. Thank you.
I second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilmember, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
The appointment of 2 alternate members to serve a 2-year term on the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 2 alternate vacancies for 2-year terms.
Open. Yes. Nancy Christie, Jess Crowley, Joel Niles, and Dorian Wilderman. Absolutely. Nancy Christie, Jess Crowley, Joel Niles, Dorian Wilderman. Okay, so we do have one, and that's Chris Vanderbilt.
All right, thank you.
Going to remove everybody that got 0 and 1 vote.
And we'll wait. those of us, those of you who are following along, we're doing our boards and commissions, but after this, in the special meeting to follow, we'll get a report from Broomfield's inaugural Board of Health, so stay tuned. I have a meeting with the State Board of Health tomorrow. It's a doozy. We did get it a week in advance, except for one a memo yesterday. A request for rulemaking. Getting better.
Ready?
The ballot's ready, correct?
Ballot is ready, correct? So we don't have a majority winner. We are going to remove Chantel Friedrich due to the lowest vote. At this point, I think it probably is appropriate to remind you that Michael Gordon is currently serving on the Personal Merit Commission as an alternate. And rerun the ballot with those two candidates, the two remaining candidates. That ballot is open.
Also coming up in part 2. Just kidding.
All right, so Arlene Kraus.
Oh, is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Chris Vanderbilt and Arlene Kraus be appointed as alternates to the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? And please cast your vote electronically, council. And they're in. Please display the results. They're not in. Oh, Councilmember Nguyen on the regular vote. Thank you. Now the council has voted and the results are in. It's 9-0.
The appointment of one youth member to serve a 2-year term on the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee are already nominated. Now we will move to vote. We will now vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for one youth vacancy.
All right, and you do have 3 youth that you've already appointed, and they're Ava Falsing, Michaela Stotsky, and Chloe Whiteside. That ballot is open.
So yeah, we should have a coming up Chiron graphic to let people know that after this, we're gonna have a code update on family childcare homes because there was a change in the state law. And then a detailed discussion on mixed use and transit oriented development zoning and rezoning changes. So don't miss it.
So we have no youth member received a majority. So this does just leave Natalie Rogers and Joaquin Ocon Garcia.
Why is it a majority vote and not just plurality? Like, who gets the most?
Again, that's what council's procedures say, majority vote.
Change that, yeah. There's 3 votes over an alternate spot. Okay. My time is
All right, that is open. So that one is Joaquin Ocon Garcia.
sorry. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Joaquin
You? Okay.
Ocon Garcia be appointed as a youth member to the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second, Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Council, go ahead and cast your vote electronically. And they're in. The results will now be displayed on screen, and that passes 9-0.
The appointment of 1 alternate youth member to serve a 2-year term on the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Parks, Recreation, and Senior Services Advisory Committee are already nominated. We will now move to vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder for this, this is for the 1 youth alternate vacancy for a 2-year term.
That ballot's open. As half of you have already seen.
I like it though. We're engaged. Thank you. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Natalie Rogers be appointed as a youth alternate to the Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee for a 2-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Lim.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Council, please cast your vote electronically. Marsh Olson? Thank you. All council members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
All right, council, this is our last board. The last board for council's review is the Personal Merit Commission, which includes 1 vacancy. The appointment of 1 member to serve a 4-year term on the Personal Merit Commission is next. The applicants listed on the 2024 Boards and Commissions Master Applicant List for the Personal Merit Commission have already been nominated. We will now move to the vote using the electronic portal. As a reminder, this is for 1 vacancy for a 4-year term. And if you haven't done a second yet, this is your last opportunity.
And three of these have already been nominated: Ann Brazil, Jeffrey Freeland, and Leonard Giuliano. That ballot is open. Unanimous, it's Gary Berlin.
All right. Oh, good. Is there a motion to appoint Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that Gary Berlin be appointed as a member of the Personal Merit Commission for a 4-year term or until a successor is appointed.
Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel?
Second.
Any discussion? Council members, cast your vote electronically. All council members have cast their vote and the results will be displayed on screen. That passes 9-0.
Well, thank you, council, and thank you, public, for your patience getting through all of that. And a major thank you to everyone that applied. The clerk's office will reach out to all the applicants with an update and next steps. Mayor, I will pass it back to you.
Thank you very much. Great job, everyone, and staff. Thank you so much for your work on this. We got through it. And that concludes the items on this evening's special meeting agenda, and the special meeting is adjourned. We'll take a short break and then reconvene to start this evening's study session. Thank you. Good evening again. We'll continue tonight with a study session of the City Council. Agendas for study sessions, including concept reviews, can be found by visiting Broomfield's website at broomfield.org. Our agenda this evening includes 3 study session items. Seeing there are no concept reviews on the agenda this evening, there will not be any public comment. You can watch the study session live on Channel 8 and through live video streaming on broomfield.org/council meetings. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets available through the AV team in the back of the council chambers. Our first study session item this evening is an update from the Board of Health. Would the Board of Health members presenting please come to the podium? And we would love for you to introduce yourselves.
I will indeed. So I am Elizabeth McCutcheon. I'm the chair of the Board of Health. And these are my peers, and they will introduce themselves. I will also let you know that Gina Valdez is not here because she is dancing her little heart out to Madonna tonight. So she's the luckiest person in the room right now. All right, please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Zach Lustgarten, one of the 5-year members, and yeah. Oh, my day job. I'm an environmental health specialist at Boulder County Public Health. I have been doing primarily food safety for 18 years at the federal, local, and state levels. So a little bit of experience in the environmental health realm, everywhere from food safety to vector control. So anything under environmental health umbrella, that's my expertise.
Good evening. I'm Erin Seedorf. So I am an associate professor at Metropolitan State University of Denver. I work in the Department of Health Professions. I'm an assistant chair there. And I started our new public health program, which is super exciting, undergraduate degree. Yeah, that's what I get to do. And I'm technically on spring break right now. So yes, not skiing right now, but thank you for having us.
Hello, I'm Dr. Savitha Ginde. I am the CEO and the Chief Medical Officer at Boulder Valley Health Center. I do everything from running the show to seeing patients, which is where I come from today, but so happy to be here. I'm going to turn it back to Elizabeth.
And I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner for Mental Health Partners. I'm wearing my gear. I did a costume change in the parking lot. Okay, so, do you have any questions so far? I'm going to this. So on this slide here, I'm really not going to go over the key functions. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because I know you guys were all functioning as the Board of Health previously. And my understanding is that you decided you wanted this in case another COVID came along and you wanted someone else to take that off your hands, which I completely understand. However, we've not had anything quite as large occur yet, and I'm hoping we do not. So next slide. Is there anything I've missed terribly there? Anyone tells me that there's something I should address, just let me know. So our first meeting was in April of 2023. So we're almost at a year's birthday. And we did the standard orientation that I believe most members, people who are parts of boards and commissions, et cetera, have to engage in. And then we did develop our board procedures, and I was elected sort of by default. And it's fine. It's turned out fine. And we'll be having elections again in May for the new chair. And my understanding is we vote for the vice chair at the same time again. So, and we did go to the National Association of County and City Health Officials Conference in July of last year. And we did do our state training, but I have to say we all really enjoyed the conference. It was way outside of, like, it was much more along what you probably do than what I do in mental health. And prior to that, I was neonatal for 20 years. So it was very interesting. Loved it. So thanks for all that. Next slide, please. So the big successes are the public health. We conducted the community health needs assessment, and we presented that to us at the Board of Health in February. And we provided some guidance on data and prioritization. And there was an internal capacity assessment that was done. And then the priority recommendations were presented to us in March of 24. Securing transportation fees, that's just something that's part of what we do, but it's not the most interesting thing that we do. So onward. And so the bigger piece is below here was with the Broomfield's Public Health and Environment's Health Equity Plan. And we approved that in September. And then below are the strategies. And I feel that you all can read. Do you want me to read them to you? Bruce says no, and the mayor says you can summarize. I appreciate your attitude, Bruce. Well, let me so I'll just run through this quickly, and I don't know how this shows up for people who are trying to view. Do they get to see the slide so they can read the slide themselves? Oh, well, that's beautiful then. So essentially what the plan is by year in terms of moving forward with the equity plan. And I will say that they did a wonderful job of making sure that people receive training and support for awareness around inequities. There were a couple opportunities that were given to us, and I appreciate that. I have to say, I have said to many, many people, the greatest thing that's happened to me in many ways with the Board of Health is the amount of education I've gotten, because I'm not getting it elsewhere. And then in December of 2025, develop and implement a community engagement framework with specific communities and timelines identified. In 26th of June, so a while from now, the BPHE staff will establish a health equity communication framework that involves the community and ensures a culturally and linguistically appropriate approach. By December 31st of 2025, establish a data collection analysis system that allows the BPHE to collect, analyze, and report on data that will help ensure we are meeting our overall health equity plan goal. And by December 31st of 2026, the BPHE will have adopted policies and procedures that reflect health equity and will help to achieve its overall health equity goal. And I'm excited about this. I think it's important work. Next slide, please. And then the other thing we've had the opportunity to engage with some of our partners. So for example, CCHA, so the Colorado Community Health Alliance, came and spoke to us, which I appreciated. And we discussed access for care for Broomfield residents who are enrolled in Medicaid, because I primarily see Medicaid patients. I believe you see a number of us, we see Medicaid patients. So, and then we also had local hospital system partners joined us, and with regards to assessment findings and opportunities to align our community health improvement efforts with efforts that they are engaging in as well. And we are meeting approximately every other month now. We were initially meeting every month because we were getting a mass download of information. And now we're meeting less frequently, and then we would meet more frequently if there was something came up that required that. Do you guys have any questions? I don't have any answers, but I'm happy to field questions.
Thank you all for being here tonight. And thank you for your presentation. I really love the framework that you guys are working with, and just sort of all in. I know you guys were drinking out of a fire hose, at first, and then it just, kind of filled in. And so I think it's different when you have those jobs in your normal careers, and then you're like, oh, my role is now Board of Health, and you're under sort of a certain role. I particularly liked where you all said that you had the health equity communication framework, and including that it's culturally and linguistically appropriate. And that approach is very important, particularly with, we've had over 100 refugees come into Broomfield, and they're coming in from Haiti, Venezuela, Afghanistan, and also Ukraine. And so it's going to be a challenge, I think, but I also think too, if there's any feedback that you want from those communities, I think that I just love that you guys are addressing it early.
Councilmember Leslie.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the work you're doing, and I know you're just getting us going. It takes time to do it, but, and you mentioned earlier in the slide about the data system you're developing. I'm always interested in identifying what are the underlying issues around whatever the topic may be. Health, obviously, for many of us here, issues around health related to oil and gas drilling and pumping and those kinds of things have been a primary concern of ours. So that's number one. There are other environmental issues, of course, related or unrelated to oil and gas drilling. And then third, there are increasingly greater issues around diet and you know, I'm fasting officially right now. I'm just curious if you all have had a chance to start to focus your areas of concern, whether the data system is starting to provide anything yet, or it's just still premature.
Absolutely premature. You are welcome to.
Your hidden resource. Yeah.
Good evening, Jason Pauling, Director of Public Health. Yeah, the board has been looking very holistically at all these topic areas and programs. And as part of that community health needs assessment, the team came in and they presented, here's what our quantitative data shows as far as the burden or problem. And then we were able to dive deeper in some areas. So what are those subpopulations where we know we have greater need, back to the health equity statement. We're using that then to drive what our community priorities are going to be. And at our last meeting, we heard loud and clear from organizations. We reached out to those organizations serving our marginalized and impacted communities, in addition to reaching out to all Broomfield residents on the Broomfield Voice. And what we heard is the top priorities that came up were behavioral health, which is no surprise. We've been working on that for 5 years. The second one was access to quality and safe housing. So when we got into issues around lead and radon and other issues, that's great because that's where we were wanting to move as a health department. And then lastly, looking at access to preventative care. And really it's confirming what we've already been known is that Broomfield Public Health has a gap filling role, given the high cost of co-insurance, deductibles, everything else. We're seeing that really come out. So our next step after that is to really dive deeper into the data and develop our strategies and plans, and then bringing that to the board for their guidance and approval.
Good, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
More on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one piece because even prior to my role on Board of Health, I've been a community member with the Communities That Care Coalition. And I think one of the things that's really, I think, extraordinary that Broomfield does is, you know, part of that committee really had the data sets. We were looking at data sets, we were diving into that deep, asking very, very deep, important questions, and had stakeholders from various organizations around the community. And I think that's really key, right? Is that we're not just looking at the data. We're taking the voices of the community members and having them engage in the process of looking at the data so that they can really own those strategies. So I think that just to really give a kudos to Broomfield in their process.
Good, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Marsh Holshan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for coming and presenting to us tonight. Can't say more how excited I am that you all are in the role that you are in. I was not on council during COVID, but I watched my colleagues struggle with it. And I'm a lawyer and do financial compliance work. I have no clue on public health, so I should not be making those decisions. So I'm happy that you all are there. A couple questions. One, what do you think is the most pressing issue facing Broomfield right now? And second, with COVID, in the media at least, we see a rise of vaccine misinformation that goes around. Are we seeing that here in Broomfield? And what do you see as your role in combating that?
Do you have an opinion about this? I mean, I don't, I have a warped opinion because I work purely in mental health right now. So, you know, from my perspective, you know, the fact that behavioral health has been prioritized and seeing, and, you know, is that an area in which we need to put priority? Absolutely. And I think that it's, I mean, for example, I work with a lot of adolescents. Depression and anxiety is sort of through the roof with adolescents. And in many ways, my hope is that if we can address it in individuals when they're younger, perhaps it won't continue to be a lifetime thing. Around misinformation, I don't know what the status here is here.
Yeah, so as we've been building and forming the board, really the board has been operating in that policymaking realm. And at this point we started a process of developing our procedures, public comment, et cetera. We really haven't had a lot of engagement around misinformation. We know it's out there, but the board hasn't been actively involved. They've been relying on the public health staff to do our job of educating the community. And then Councilmember Barshall, if we ever got to a point that like we needed the board to make a statement through a proclamation or resolution that could be brought forward by staff to the board, and they could take the appropriate position.
Thank you. Ms. Homer.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim?
Yes, I was interested, you said you had a presentation on Medicaid, and its status. I know we heard from Health and Human Services that there was going to be a push for Health and Human Services to make sure that Medicaid recipients knew that they had to re-enroll after COVID because they had a grace period during that time. Director Volling said that the health department is trying to fill the gap. So I'm interested to know if you're seeing that some of the people who should have re-enrolled with Medicaid did not, and that you have more of a gap to fill in any of your capacities.
I'll just speak from sort of practice of knowing that a ton of people with the end of the public health emergency, we've seen a growing number of folks who are falling off of Medicaid when they had the expansion across COVID. So that's one of the pieces. I think there's been a lot of effort from the state to really make sure people know how to re-enroll or how to get re-engaged. I think the gap that exists is for those people who may not have insurance, or if they got pulled off of Medicaid because of the end of the emergency, then they end up getting on the exchange and maybe getting a catastrophic plan or one of those high deductible plans, which doesn't help with your screening and preventive care. So that's a huge gap that we need to fill. And that will include, I'm going to say this, of bringing in, making sure that there's access to preventive care services, which is bringing in practices that can see those patients who may or may not have health insurance for the preventive care services.
That's spot on. And when we brought in CCHA, we were having a discussion because our chairperson brought this up, that from the behavioral health side, what they were seeing was challenges getting into a medical care provider. And we were always hearing the opposite, the challenges of getting in to the behavioral health care provider. I think some of the issues we're seeing in Broomfield is providers that are willing to accept Medicaid and take that on. And so a role we play is that liaison role with CCHA to encourage and reach out to providers on how we could best help them if they do want to accept Medicaid clients. The other thing that we were seeing through the process too is really when it comes down to that access to care, it runs the full spectrum of our entire community. And so, you know, the assumption you see is with the end of the emergency, it's only impacted individuals that were on Medicaid. But what we're also seeing is there's that sort of rolling on and off of Medicaid that happens. And so the gap filling role that we provide at Broomfield Public Health is in reproductive health services, STI screenings, immunizations, and primarily serving those that have limited ability to pay, or even if there is health insurance, have major issues of being underinsured. And so how do we fulfill that role? Because there's nobody out there really providing that in Broomfield.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to thank y'all for coming out and presenting this and for all the work you've done. Obviously, this is a massive task with everything related to healthcare. And obviously, I'm sure you're all volunteers and you've given your time for this amazing cause. I only have really one question, and that's, have you analyzed or looked at long COVID and long COVID, effects within Broomfielders? Or is this kind of still like, because I know the effects of long COVID is still very much still in research, and we still don't know too much about long COVID.
I'll start again, and I'm going to start sounding like a broken record, but really what we've been trying to do is educate the board on all of our various programs. And so the ability to get into specific topic areas, we haven't had that discussion yet with the board on long COVID, but I could foresee that being something when we do our deep dive on our immunization program, where we have that discussion and what does it mean for Broomfield residents. And then the role of the board is that policymaking role. Again, are we doing enough? Or is there recommendations or guidance they want to give us as the health department where we need to take additional action?
And I appreciate, the making sure that you guys are looking at multiple, but focusing on narrowing down on the various broad range of healthcare things we need to address. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for volunteering, and I appreciate y'all's efforts on and I look forward to seeing your annual report plan. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So just before you all presented, before our break, we had the boards and commissions appointments. So your service to Broomfield is even much more highlighted as we just went through that process. Thank you for your service to Broomfield, and thank you for all the hours that you put in as volunteers, but in addition to all of your professions. It's pretty amazing. So thank you. The conference that you went to, this was the conference down in Denver, is that correct? The reports from those people that also attended that conference down in Denver is that the Broomfield people that attended are pretty much rock stars. That was like the report, is that like you all in Broomfield are very lucky to be represented by these folks. So thank you for representing Broomfield so well and providing your expertise there. I'm curious, with that conference, what were like 2 to 3 the things that you learned or brought away from that conference that you're going to apply to the Board of Public Health maybe this year or into the future as we go through these plans?
So I don't know necessarily if this, well, okay, let me see if I can be clearer. My ADHD is really catching up with me. So I went to this one presentation that I found very interesting, and I believe it was at this one because it was trying to implement programs during COVID. It was in the state, I want to say it was the state of Kansas or maybe Ohio, a very red area. And the mayor there was a Republican, yet she also was a business person. And so she understood that the health of the citizens there mattered for business. And so it was very interesting to me how she approached her city council and her constituents and business individuals there in terms of educating people about how, people being ill ultimately means people can't work or people can't spend or people can't work. And so she was really, 2 things she was able to do. One, she was able to get people to get vaccinated, which I thought was great. And the other thing she ended up building was a mobile unit that actually went around and was checking, doing COVID tests and providing vaccines, which I thought was brilliant. And I thought it was great because this was a relatively small town. And so she was able to get the financing to do that, and she did it. And I thought to myself, this woman knows how to talk. I mean, she was great at storytelling and getting people all, cohesive and saying, okay, we're moving together as a community because this is what's best for the community. Anyway, I thought she was brilliant. I wish I could remember her name. I remember talking to you guys about it because I was so impressed with the way she was able to get people to come together. So I would say anytime you can do that, go for it.
Right.
So I think one of the things we talked about, it was remarkable because we're in amongst all of these professionals who the majority of the attendees were local public health, right? Agency staff and maybe even folks that were appointed, but there were very few of us representing boards of health. And I think we were going around into presentations and had to do kind of the round robin, introduce ourselves. And we'd say that we're Board of Health members. And they were like, oh, you're here. We really love that you're here. We wish, and I think I'm thinking back to when in my prior professional life, when I worked at a local health department, I felt like there was a track at some point where there was Board of Health and so we could connect with other boards of health from around the country. And I think that's kind of fallen off to the side. And so I think that was one of the pieces that we gave feedback and hoping that that makes it back to NACCHO and perhaps they reconsider that, because I do think it's very important for us to continually hear from the people in the field who are doing the work when we're being approached to, to make decisions or to provide guidance. We need to understand the vast array of how those issues are being approached across the country. So I think that was one thing that we really talked about and wanting to make sure that try to push forward. So not necessarily anything you all, or I don't know if you're connected to NACCHO and can make some suggestions. We made the suggestion, so we'll see.
Thank you for that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, yeah, as you guys know, right around the same time we appointed you to take on the Board of Health, the governor appointed me to serve on the State Board of Health representing CD7. So one of the first meetings we were doing new rulemakings and lessons learned post-COVID, and it was immunizations. So it was like living it all over again. But I was curious because I'm obviously not there for my medical expertise. There are 2 county commissioners that are statutorily required to serve. So I serve for Broomfield County, and there's the El Paso County Commissioner, Stan Vanderwerf, serving in his district. So mainly what we look at is unfunded mandates, like who's going to pay for it, where's the money coming from, but also making sure that their stakeholder process is inclusive. And I just wanted to check in with you guys. Do you feel like you have a good connection with the CDPHE and in terms of all these rulemakings and requests for rulemakings that we're getting? Is there that symbiotic relationship where the state board is working, well, I'm not personally, but, I guess Director Volling could address that.
So as we've gone through that forming, one thing we've been trying to do is bring forward the regulations or the rules from State Board of Health, but other state departments to the board as part of the education of here's what drives the programs, and this is why we have to do it. And then here's our limitations. But the other opportunity is the state does sponsor, it's another training through the regional, it's a leadership program. Yeah, right. That's Rye Hill. But basically it brings boards from across the state together to have these conversations. And I believe the state board was also invited to attend. I don't know, again, given all the duties of the state board, if that was possible, but that's one thing that we've been trying to do is help educate the board on here's what are the rules that drive why we do this in retail food establishment processes, or why we do it in septic systems, or why we do it for immunizations, all the rules we have to follow. Our challenge is not overwhelming the board with too much in the rules and regulations unless there's a need. Like if we have to craft a local regulation because the state regulations don't fulfill what Broomfield needs, that's when we would be bringing it to the board and say we need to have a local regulation to address that. So I think we're in the process of still understanding and learning all the various statutes and regulations out there that drive our work. And then the next phase of this will be starting from a staff perspective to say, here's the areas where we need to have the board very involved in. One thing we discussed very early on was hearings and what does the hearing process look like? So removal of a retail food license. What does that look like if somebody wants to contest it? And so we're going through that process too, because there might be times where the board has to have a public hearing. And thankfully we have Ms. Gilbert who represents us and is very knowledgeable in what those processes should look like. And so I think more will come in that space. And also to your point, Mayor, we are trying to keep the rules related to local public health agency functions because there's so much that CDPHE does that are beyond what a local public health agency has to do, like in hazardous materials or water, et cetera, where they have primary authority. So starting with those rules and regulations, they make the most sense for a local board of health.
Makes sense to me, and I am just so grateful for all of your service and helping us keep Broomfield safe and healthy. So anybody else? All right, well, thank you guys for taking time during spring break to be here and your busy schedules. Okay, our next study session item this evening is a presentation and discussion related to recommended code amendments regarding family child care homes. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Burton Zeddy, it is your turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. Anna Burton Zeddy, Planning Director and Co-Director for Community Development. If I could have the next slide, please. In 2021, Colorado passed House Bill 1222, which changed the way that local governments in Colorado can regulate family child care homes. The intent of the legislation was to address the significant need for additional child care facilities throughout the state by requiring family child care homes to be able to care for up to 12 children throughout the state and be regulated the same way as any other residential use. Broomfield has been following these requirements, but we are bringing forward this study session to address how the code needs to be revised to reflect these changes in state law. So these are mandated changes that we'll be going over this evening. Next slide, please. Broomfield's current code allows family child care homes to care for up to 8 children. And so family child care homes are child care facilities that are operated out of a residential dwelling unit. With the new requirements, the state is mandating that the city increase the number of children that can be cared for within a home to 12. Since this requirement needs to be addressed, staff is also proposing to align the way that Broomfield defines the ages for those cared within the home. Broomfield currently defines child care homes as caring for children under the age of 13. The state uses the age of 18, and we're recommending that we align the ages in the municipal code with the state licensing requirement. So family child care homes would be able to care for those under 18. No changes are really being proposed to the way that we regulate child daycare facility regulations. Child daycare facilities are not in a home. These are not a residential use. They're typically in our commercial areas. So a child daycare facility, we're not proposing a change to. Next slide, please. So we have kind of 3 different terms that we use throughout the code. Child daycare facilities, which I mentioned, are more of a commercial operation. The family child care homes, which is what the state regulations changed that mandates us to allow up to 12 rather than 8 children to be cared for in a home. And then we also have a definition for adult daycare facility, or I'm sorry, adult daycare homes as well. And since we're changing the regulation for family childcare home to address that it allows for care for those 18 and under, we are also proposing a similar change to the adult daycare home definition to then reflect that it's older than the age of 18 for those. Next slide, please. There's a few other cleanup items, and the memorandum goes into detail a little bit more on all of the various code sections that have to be updated, but we've included a few for our presentation. One of those is ensuring that there's a consistent use of terms throughout the code. So we use daycare in some locations and child daycare facilities in others. So we're trying to make sure that we use the same terminology throughout the code. So there are changes in the municipal code to Title 5, 9, and 17, but it's not substantial changes. This is changes just to reflect that we want the same use of terms. So we'll be using the child daycare facility throughout. Next slide, please. So again, with this legislation that's been passed, Brimfield will need to make a few other modifications. The only thing that municipalities are able to regulate, Brimfield would not be able to regulate the parking and manage parking and traffic flow unless there are immediate large family childcare homes adjacent to one another. And currently our code does have some limitations on the ability for patrons of a family childcare home, not more than 2 vehicles per home. And we're not able to regulate that any longer. And so we are proposing to make those changes to the municipal code, as now we're allowed under state law to only have those changes apply to an instance where we would have next to each other 2 large family childcare homes, and that's defined as care of more than 7 and less than the 12 children. Next slide, please. So staff will provide information regarding this code cleanup for the community. It's important to note that Brimfield must make these changes. These are mandated changes to the regulation of the family childcare homes. To provide the information to the community about the change, we plan to provide a Brimfield Voice page, as well as ensure that the Voice website and information is shared in the community updates. The ordinance will be noticed as required, and there will also be a public hearing scheduled. At this time, we're anticipating that the first reading for the code cleanup could occur in May, which means the public hearing and second reading would occur sometime probably in June. And that concludes staff's presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Burton-Zetti. We'll go to questions from council. Using the agenda link thing, please press the button if you would like to speak. I forgot. I'll wait. Okay. Oh, there we go. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, do we have any idea how many already approved daycare homes or adult daycare homes this will impact?
Thank you for the question. So Brimfield does typically when a new family childcare home is going through the process of licensing with the state, one of their steps is to require a zoning verification letter, and our department provides that zoning verification. So we occasionally see those new childcare facilities come through. There has been 2 inquiries that I'm familiar with that have come through since this legislation was passed, asking about the operating a larger child care facility out of their home and getting a zoning verification letter for such. I think that one of them may be in our operation, but I'm not sure if it's currently in operation. But it would allow any number of additional homes to come through in the future.
Okay. My other question actually was not exactly addressed in this, but when the code referred to the adult daycare facilities I was looking at 173220, and there is a stipulation that adult daycare homes shall not be located within 1,500 feet of an existing approved adult daycare facility. What's the history of that? That struck me as odd. There's no restriction that I saw that was like comparable in childcare facilities.
Great question. I'm actually not familiar with that, but that is something that we could look at and bring back information on.
While we were cleaning up the code, I
Yeah.
mean, it looks like, well, what's that for? I don't know. Okay.
Right. I'm not familiar with the root of where that came from, but if council was interested in, for example, removing that limitation on the separation for adult care facilities, that would be something that we could include in this ordinance as well.
Just thinking we're going to we have an aging population in Broomfield, and we're going to probably need more adult daycare facilities in some form, and that's what was behind my question for why do we have to have a setback for them? I don't know. Okay, thanks. I'd be interested to find that out.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. So maybe I'm missing something here, but if you have childcare facilities up to age 18, and then as soon as you pass age 18, move to 19, you're in the adult care. Is either or, like, what about this middle transition? Are you required to be either or? Can you be licensed as potentially both if you're serving a certain population in the middle? Does that? Or is that really not a need?
Councilmember, we can make sure that our definitions are precisely matched with what the state is regulating. We can make sure that that language is clarified. It isn't intended to be, if it's, is the language specific that it's under 18 and over 18, one of them will have to include the age of 18.
Okay, and I guess what I'm wondering, is there ever a facility that, what if you wanted a facility from ages 17 to 19? Like you can't have that. You have to be 18 and under or over 18, right? I'm just curious about that. Like, is there a such facility, or is that just never really are they childcare or adult care and there's nothing in between? That's all, and you can look into that.
I think I might have to look into it. I mean, I'm familiar with the state licensing requirements, but I'm not sure whether that would mean they'd have to get a license for both. Did you run into that situation? I'm just gonna ask our staff.
Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thanks. So you had talked about the idea that some of this is mandatory based upon state requirements. And I just think that as we go to message us out on the Broomfield Voice and to our stakeholders, that we're very clear about what is required, what are those required changes, and what are the other changes that we're making, just so that people are very clear that there are some things that we can have adjustments on, but there are other things that are state mandates.
Thank you, Councilmember, or I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf. We can definitely make sure that the messaging is more clear.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member questions? All right. Did you need any further clear direction? What would you like?
Thank you. This evening, we were just wanting to make sure that we gave you all a little bit of information regarding the background on this, but since it is a mandated change, we knew we'd be bringing it back, so no direction is needed.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Burton-Zetti. Don't go too far. Our final study session item this evening is a discussion regarding mixed use, transit-oriented development, and rezoning changes. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, and I ask our staff to summarize.
All right, I think we're actually going to start with Brandon Rowe, one of our
Oh,
principal
my mistake. Hey,
planners.
Brandon. Mr.
Brandon.
Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Brandon Rowe, Principal Planner. Could I get the next slide, please? The final study session for tonight's agenda is related to the proposed changes to the municipal code related to rezoning, to the rezoning process and the creation of new transit-oriented development and mixed-use zone districts. Transit-oriented development is a mouthful, so I will call it TOD for the rest of the presentation. So looking back at the background, during the January 17th, 2023 study session, Ms. Burton-Zetti laid out a systematic approach to updating development tools. This included identifying the desire to create a new mixed-use zone district as a project, and that was targeted for 2024. On August 15th of last year, we held an initial study session with council, introducing a number of municipal code changes proposed, including the creation of the new TOD zone district, 2 new mixed-use districts, changes to the rezoning process that included requiring neighborhood meetings, establishing specific findings for LRC and council decisions, and a requirement for projects that were rezoning to the proposed new districts to provide preliminary engineering reports due to the densities and intensities being proposed. We also proposed to create a new administrative development plan process as part of that initial study session last year. Based upon the direction provided by council that evening, the administrative development plan process is no longer part of the proposed code changes. We've also made some minor changes to the different sections. Could I get the next slide, please? This slide was shared back in August as well. And I just want to reiterate that the reason why we're able to propose these changes and new zoning districts is largely because of the strong foundation that council has helped to build by adopting a number of additional zoning changes and municipal code changes, ranging from the IHO to EV charging, the electric code, landscape and water-wise requirements. There's a whole list of everything we did in the last couple of years. Next slide, please. So the proposed modifications to the rezoning process have remained unchanged from that August 2023 study session. Just to refresh your memory, that's the neighborhood meeting requirement, stronger standards or findings for decisions, as well as requiring those additional engineering reports as part of rezoning requests. Next slide, please. The biggest change that's been proposed in the revised ordinance that was shared with council this evening is the elimination of the administrative development plan process. As previously discussed, upon the direction from council, that's been removed, and instead the TOD and mixed-use districts are proposed to incorporate a process that's similar to what is currently used for the Transitional Overlay Area District, also known as the TOAD. That would be that these new zone districts would act more similar to a PUD plan, establishing baseline development standards and eliminating the need for individual developments to go through the PUD process. Helps to reduce a step in the development process and speed up the review. This would also require concept reviews for development proposals and site development plans that would require going to the Land Use Review Commission and or City Council. Depending on the size of the project, it would follow that call-up provision that's established. It would also allow for increased flexibility for developments with the ability for applicants to request variances. If you remember back in August, the original proposal was pretty rigid standards. You meet them, you check the boxes, and we move on. This approach is returning the flexibility that was discussed by council in August as a desirable element for moving forward. Next slide, please. The first zone district is the TOD. It's remained pretty consistent with what was proposed about 6 months ago. It will be the highest density and intensity district and is most appropriate for areas along existing or planned transit centers or bus rapid transit lines. Some changes that have been made since August include reducing the minimum density requirement from 30 dwelling units per acre to 15 dwelling units per acre. This is providing more flexibility for development now that the administrative development plan process has been eliminated. We've also eliminated the discussion of a customized public land dedication for this zone district. Developments are going to be required to comply with the new OSPRT plan that was adopted a couple weeks ago. We've also added some additional new uses under the allowed uses for this district, and that mirrors the model code that was put out by the state earlier this year or late last year. Those include adding conference centers, hospitals, wineries, and food truck courts. Next slide, please. The suburban mixed-use district is the mixed-use district that allows for a combination of residential and non-residential uses. Again, the changes that have been made in this case, we've reduced the minimum density from 12 dwelling units to 10 dwelling units per acre. This mirrors that flexibility discussed for the TOD. We've also eliminated the PLD customized approach and added wineries and food truck courts to this district as well. Next slide, please. Mixed use 2 was the employment mixed use district. This was intended not to allow residential uses and was more tailored towards areas that are more appropriate for commercial, industrial, flex uses. The only changes made to this district include adding additional uses and replacing that administrative development plan process. Next slide, please. As council is well aware, House Bill 1313, also known as the Bill for Housing and Transit-Oriented Communities, has been introduced and is working through committee review currently. It has not been finalized or signed into law. But if it is signed into law, it could impact staff's recommendations in this proposed ordinance, specifically related to items like density and development standards. If House Bill 1313 is signed into law, it's possible that the zone districts alone that were described in the draft ordinance shared with council this evening would not be sufficient to meet all the requirements of the bill, which would mean that additional land use tools may be required or actions may be required. This could include overlay districts or PUD amendments to bring into compliance. Next slide, please. If directed to move forward this evening with an ordinance, staff would create a Broomfield voice page and follow the typical process for ordinances that Ms. Burton Zeddy outlined in the last study session for council. A tentative date for that first reading of this ordinance could be July 9th, 2024. That date is after the anticipated end of session, so we would know what the status of House Bill 1313 is. And this evening, the direction that staff is seeking is just whether or not council wishes us to move forward with this ordinance. That completes staff's presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosso. I'm just going to take a privilege here. And how long is this going to take to do all this rezoning stuff? It's probably going to take till July, right? It's complicated.
Thank you for the question, Mayor. So we've been providing an estimate that we believe if House Bill, I think the question is really how long will it take us to address House Bill 1313? We think we're estimating about 15 to 18, the equivalent of 15 to 18 months of one full-time employee to go through just the rezoning process. There'd also be additional cost and coordination with outside consultants to look at the infrastructure impacts. So it's not just that only one person would be working on it. Obviously, there's a large number of people in many different departments that would need to look at rezoning large significant areas of the city to increase zoning capacity near our transit areas. But it's about the equivalent of one full-time person every day for about 15
And
to
so
18
what is
months.
this 3-month thing that they're proposing in the bill? Like you have 3 months to do it?
I think the 3 months you may be referring to, or they will be coming out with some guidance and being prepared to publish that by the end of this year. And then preliminary reports on what each community believes their housing opportunity goal and the methodology for reaching their housing opportunity goal is due within 3 months of that methodology being published. Then the cities would have another period of time.
How long?
I believe it's about a year and a half or so to have all of that put into place in terms of taking the steps that are outlined in your preliminary HOG report, Housing Opportunity Goal report, and reporting it back to DOLA. DOLA then has to review it, verify it, and make sure that you're in compliance or your HUTF funding may be in jeopardy.
And they'll file an injunction.
Yes, I forgot about that being added.
I haven't. Okay, let's go to council member questions and comments. Councilmember Marsh Holshan.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions and then a comment. On the use by right in the zoning, personal service shops, what is that?
Thank you, Councilmember. Typically, those uses would be something like dry cleaners or other similar uses.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And then along those lines, you have the use by right, use by special review. Does that mean any other uses besides what's listed there are excluded? For example, gas station, car washes, mini storage, car lots, that kind of stuff.
Councilmember, that's correct. Any use not listed would be prohibited.
Perfect, thank you. Maximum building height on the TOD is 85 feet. What does that equate to, number of stories?
Yeah, I was gonna say 6, but Anna's saying 7, so 6 to 7.
Okay, thank you. When I spoke with someone from Baseline, they mentioned that there's a cost associated once they go above 5. And so, okay, that's perfect, thank you. Then the other question, I guess, is if we assume 1313 is going to pass in some form, why aren't we drafting this more in line with some of those requirements?
Councilmember, at this time, we are proposing what we believe are reflective of the community in terms of what we've seen. One being built in the area so that we follow a strategy of trying to ensure that our zoning capacity is closely aligned with what we're planning for infrastructure and for our public facilities, especially water and sewer capacity is able to handle. If 1313 passes, the idea of the bill is that communities would be planning that we would be building in 10 times the amount of zoning capacity that we actually think would be built. So it's a different approach to zoning than our community has traditionally followed. And so that's why we wouldn't bring that forward unless House Bill 1313 passes.
Okay, thank you. Then my comment, I love pretty much everything in this, except the reduction in the minimum zoning density. I do not support that. I think that we should have kept it closer to the 30 or more, honestly. I understand the infrastructure needs, and I get that, but I do think that, especially in these transit areas, we do need to go higher zoning. And obviously we'll have to if 1313 goes into effect. So that's my only really feedback that I would like to see changed. But other than that, I'm encouraged that we are moving forward with this type of zoning changes. So I think that's my only comment at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. So why did we reduce it, Ms. Burton-Zetti?
We did give it some thought. We were really thinking that providing more flexibility, because it is more similar now to a PUD where we are still going through a site plan process with a public process. We're trying to build in more flexibility throughout the regulations. But we'd be happy to go back and revisit that if council's direction is to increase the minimum of the densities for the districts. I think that is fully appropriate. We'd be happy to bring that back with that amendment if that's the direction.
I just wanted to clarify if it was an infrastructure limitation or it was a resource limitation.
Good clarification. It is not. We really look at the maximum density for that limitation, and I do not believe we've made any changes to the maximum density since it was here in August.
All right, thank you. Sorry for cutting. Councilmember Lim.
I have other questions, but I'll start there since we're on that subject. What struck me was that you reduced it to 15 instead of 20, because I had read the analysis that others throughout the region actually read too, of 1313 using the 20 units density. So that's, if you were going to reduce it, that's what I expected you to reduce it to, was the 20 and not the 15.
Staff is recommending an amendment to the bill to have the average density set at 20. We are not in this code proposing an average density, but rather just a minimum and a maximum. So the minimum being around 15, and then the maximum was significantly higher. I want to say 60 for one of the districts, but we'd be happy to look at that and make it a higher density if that's the direction. Higher densities between 20 and probably 80 are more common in these areas. I've spent quite a bit of time looking at the density of our existing properties around these stations. And I think most of our apartment developments in these areas are coming in the mid-20s. So I think it's likely that future developments will comply with a 20 as a minimum. 15 gives us a little more flexibility in terms of being able to accommodate townhome style developments. So it's an opportunity for ownership models within these areas. So we were just thinking it provides a little bit of flexibility if there were to be a location where townhomes might be an option.
Well, that sounds like a good reason then to keep it at 15. If you can verify that 15 allows the townhomes then, okay? Then I'll retract my request for an amendment then to what you had proposed. Thank you for answering my questions earlier by email on the code. On the stipulations of what the rezoning request should demonstrate. So I was interested in going, you suggested different directions we could go. I was interested in going in the direction of the SDP standards that where it says the proposal should identify and mitigate potential negative impacts on nearby properties. And then separately, it says the proposal should identify and maximize potential positive impacts on nearby properties. I liked that possibility of your proposals if we wanted to change something. The only thing I thought was then we already have number 3 in the code that says the proposal mitigates the negative impacts among the surrounding area. So somehow that all has to fit together and not be redundant. But as a substitute for 5, that was the direction I thought was good. Thank you for your suggestions. Is it true that any rezoning will require a neighborhood meeting now? So not just rezoning to these TODs, MU1s and MU2s?
Councilmember Lim, that's correct. Any rezoning.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood that. Is it possible, we are requiring the preliminary engineering reports now. Will those still not be available till it gets to LERC or council? Or is there any opportunity that we could have those available already at the neighborhood meeting?
In many cases, that neighborhood meeting may be taking place prior to that work being done to gauge community sentiment. But if they're available, we would be able to share them. I wouldn't be able to guarantee each project would have it at that stage.
Okay. And I was thinking it probably could be too onerous to require a developer to have that available at the neighborhood meeting level. I mean, that's the kind of thing that, at least with that traffic report, that's the kind of thing that's, when we're talking about infill projects in particular, which is what we might be talking with this, that's the kind of thing that the neighborhood meeting is going to want to bring up is, okay, where's your traffic report? We get that all the time from the residents.
I'm just going to add in, I agree, when even at concept review, sometimes we get information requests for traffic. But at those early stages, we would be concerned with sharing out a draft that staff hasn't had an opportunity to review. A neighborhood meeting is held prior to a formal application being submitted, so we would not have had a chance, our traffic engineer would not have reviewed their traffic study. So I think it's important for us to get that as part of the formal application, have an opportunity to review it and be sharing that out as well as through that process, being able to be a reviewer in that while the public is also having access to it.
Okay. A legal question. Is the rezoning neighborhood meeting a quasi judicial situation?
Yes, because as far as from council's perspective, yes, because if I understand it right, it's post-application. It's pre-application. As long as it's pre-application, then it's not, well, let me caveat this, Councilmember Lim. It's not necessarily, the application would not be in a quasi judicial status when the neighborhood meeting's going on. But one of the important tenets of your land use review power is to make sure you don't have the appearance of impartiality or that you garnered information that might lead to bias in your ultimate decision-making. So if the question is, would it be acceptable for a council member to attend those neighborhood meetings? We'd probably talk about that more on a case-by-case basis. I think it would be acceptable. It's probably something that we would want to make sure that we disclose to the applicant. And then I'd want to talk further to council about how to make sure you are communicating your neutrality as you're attending those pre-application events.
Okay, thank you. One more question. In 172340AB, okay, it's the restriction condition when you're stepping the height next to another area. So why is the condition only when the rezoning is adjacent to a low-density residential zoning area? Why was the medium residential zoning area also not included as being adjacent and needing stepping? I don't know if I said that. I hope you got that right. You got the idea.
I'll try, and if I don't get it, just let me know.
Okay.
So in most cases, the maximum height being 45, 55, 85 feet for the TOD. That's a significant height increase compared to the low density homes that we typically see of 25-ish feet. The medium density homes are already pushing the 40 to 45-foot height. So there's a transition existing. But if council wanted us to revise that to provide a step back from medium density housing, we could definitely look at that prior to bringing this forward.
Can you, I guess I'm trying to picture the areas that are medium density. I guess that's what was going through my head as I thought, well, is this important? And I'm thinking, okay, where is it?
Yeah, so for the TOD project, which is going to be those tallest buildings, the 85 foot, that would be Arista baseline area. Other areas along US 36, which are serviced by the bus rapid transit. Broomfield Town Square to a degree.
Yeah.
Those are probably the best examples.
So there's probably, if there's medium density, it wouldn't be very impactful. Okay, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Staff have a couple of questions. I know as we've been discussing the baseline developments, we keep hearing about we need a minimum amount of density to justify bus rapid transit from a financial perspective. And as I recall, that was roughly 27 dwelling units per acre, 30 dwelling units per acre. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the target density.
Okay. And so if that's the target density and TOD is we're trying to plan around 36, Highway 7, which are the BRT corridors, why would we then target, or not, I shouldn't say target, but move that minimum down to 15? I understand the want to have more or townhomes development. I'll have a question on that, but I'm just curious as to why we would do that lower number when we're supposed to have this number for BRT to be successful.
Councilmember, thank you for the question. So that 20, I'm going to say 26 ballpark for the density is the average density for the area surrounding the bus rapid transit services. And as Ms. Burton-Zetti noted, the decreased density aims to provide for that housing diversity. So townhomes and apartments. So the thought is that with the townhomes being at a 15 dwelling units per acre, there would still be apartments that are above that 20 to 25 to 30 per acre. So the average would still come together to meet the goal to support bus rapid transit.
Okay, I'm just running the numbers through my head, and that's quite a bit of apartments still to overcome that average for townhomes. But next question is the Grandview townhomes that are happening in Interlochen. What is their average dwelling unit per acre right now? And I know they have a mixture of townhomes with some condos, so that might skew it a bit.
I don't know that offhand, but it looks like Ms. Burton-Zetti is looking that up, so I can follow up with that for you.
Okay. And I guess going to the mixed use, to the suburban mixed use development districts, are we really trying to target townhomes in those particular areas by having that reduction from 12 to 10 dwelling units per acre? Or what was the kind of the methodology behind that?
Councilmember, thank you. So those areas would be some of our more transitional areas, closer to the single family residential. So the suburban mixed use would really be prime for future redevelopment. 120th corridor is a good example where we have well-established single-family neighborhoods that we want to make sure that we provide some sort of logical transition or buffer to. So 10 dwelling units per acre next to Brandywine, for an example, might be a more soft transition for housing, but still gets us higher density in a mixed-use setting.
Okay. I guess my next question is, we have for TOD and MU district requirements on the chart, it says our proposed is 85. Is that for both TOD and for MU, or is that, because I know it was spelled out in TOD that it's 85, but I didn't quite catch that in MU, so just need clarification there.
Council member, that was just the highest density proposed of our zone district. So the 85 is only, or the 65 dwelling units, and then the 85-foot building height is only for the TOD district.
Okay. As part of the TOD district, I know Interlochen could potentially fall in, or areas could fall in that, and there are commercial developments that are roughly 11 stories, and that would be above the 85-foot. Would that pose a problem in terms of getting certain types of commercial development? Not that office space is in high demand right now, but you never know. We said retail was dead and it's not.
Council member, that's one of the benefits of taking the approach of removing that administrative development process and bringing in the new process where they still have to go through concept and site plan review, is that an applicant could request a variance for an increased height, which would be subject to city council and land use review, consideration and approval. But they would provide a justification. So in a case where they were asking for an increased height to accommodate commercial uses, that'd be something that council could weigh in and approve a variance for that.
Okay. Ms. Burton, you look like you're waiting patiently.
I am waiting patiently. I have the information for you. So Councilmember Ward, you had asked what the density is for the townhomes at Interlochen. I don't have it just for the townhomes. We have it for the overall parcel because there are 2 condominium buildings and it's 30 dwelling units per acre for that development as a whole. So that includes the condominiums and the townhomes.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the height, I personally would rather just increase the height to allow for those commercial developments if they so could pencil out. Because as was noted, most residential developments face a financial challenge going above 5, roughly 6 stories. And so I don't necessarily see that being as, why go through the extra step of having to request a variance and spend all this time doing that? I would just rather have it right off the bat. I think for me, I would rather in the TOD areas still see a slightly higher density requirement, just because we are attempting to place those units along BRT and potentially future rail corridors, and rail supposedly needs an even higher density per dwelling unit per acre to justify the cost. And so I would personally rather just see that higher density there and find some creative way to mix in a TOD area and then a MU area surrounding that to accommodate maybe townhomes or something like that. But beside the point, that's kind of all I have right now. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Anderson?
Okay, so on this whole vein of whether we have 15 units as a minimum or raise it up, I appreciate that explanation, and I definitely think it's wise of us to keep that flexibility and keep the lower limit where it is, aiming for the average. Is there an understanding this need for the density nearest the bus stop or the train station or wherever we're approaching? Is it possible to somehow require that the closest units are more dense, but that there is that option for townhomes, or is that just getting too in the weeds? Because I think it's just if you're going for the average, you're going to get there.
A little thinking on the answer. I think it's perfectly possible to work something into the regulations. If a parcel is within a certain distance from the transit station, that there is a higher minimum density within that area, we'd be happy to look at whether that's something that we could work into the regulation.
That'd be appreciated, and then still keeping that opportunity for those townhomes. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other council member questions, comments? First round first. Here we go. Anybody? All right, second round. You can press your button. Councilmember Marsh Holston. Oh, is this your first time? I'm sorry.
This is my second run.
Oh, okay. You only have one star. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. I just had one follow-up question that I forgot in the first round. It's related to the public land dedication. And this isn't really a question, it's more of a comment. And I brought this up during the open space conversation a couple weeks ago. My concern is the movement towards little tiny green spaces at each little apartment building versus a larger park setting for the residents can join communally. And I'm wondering if, I guess this is a question, is there a way we could work that into this? If we're rezoning an entire area, could that be part of it rather than little tiny micro plots of grass?
Councilmember, not as part of this particular rezoning process, but I think that that's a great fit. But we will be bringing forward an ordinance for the public land dedication later this year. So including that as part of a larger discussion when we codify that would definitely be something that we could look at, as well as if a developer is coming into an area and proposing something within one of these areas. The great thing about the recent change is that the concept review is brought back. So there will be an opportunity for council and the community to weigh in. And that has been really powerful for us being able as staff to then negotiate with developers. It's how we were able to get a park up off of the Via Vara area and get multiple apartment developments to work together to be able to cohesively get a larger park than we would have otherwise. And a lot of that came from the direction that we get from concept review.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim? I saw the.
Yeah, so I went back to my study session notes and I had made a comment to ask about the possibility of expanding the distance for notice from 1,000 feet, just recognizing that there's the possibility of large, well, at least in the MU1 and the MU2, the large infill type developments that would be impactful. Do you have, I guess I'm interested if planning has a situation where they feel that there's going to be an impactful development, do they ever suggest to the developer that maybe they extend the notice, or is 1,000 feet a hard and fast rule?
Councilmember Lim, thank you for the question. So the code is written in a way that allows, at the discretion of the planning director, to require an enhanced notice buffer. So we have had projects, I've had projects myself that we knew that a larger community interest was in the project. So we've increased that distance from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet or something of the sort. So there's the flexibility there to implement that.
Okay, that's great. That alleviates my concern because I'm sure you can anticipate if an infill development is going to have a large impact. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Any final thoughts, comments? You have enough to go forward? All right. Well, thank you so much. Good to see this moving along. And I believe that concludes the items for this evening's study session. There being no further business, the study session is adjourned. Good night.